So, what if I told you that the word cunning, a word that for most of us brings up ideas of cheating, of deceit, is actually considered a high form of wisdom in another culture? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the 36 stratagems. It's an ancient Chinese framework that completely reframes cunning as this sophisticated art. And you might be surprised to see how it's used not just in war, but in boardrooms, in marketing, and hey, maybe even on you.
Here's our roadmap. First, we'll tackle our own definition of cunning. Then we'll explore a totally different perspective, seeing it as a form of wisdom, before we unpack the 36 stratagems themselves. We'll look at these strategies in the real world, and then finally, we're going to talk about a critical blind spot that could be affecting your own decisions.
All right, so let's jump right in with the word itself.
For a lot of us in the Western world, the answer is a pretty quick yes. Words like cunning, scheming, trickery, they just scream untrustworthy, a moral failing. We're taught that these are the tools of the dishonest. But what if that view is actually a huge cultural blind spot?
Because in traditional Chinese thought, being cunning isn't a character flaw. Not at all. In fact, it's seen as a direct product of intelligence and creativity.
And this slide right here shows a massive philosophical split. You see, in the West, thinkers like John Locke basically drew a hard line between wisdom and cunning, seeing cunning as, a cheap knockoff. But the traditional Chinese view merges them. It suggests the intelligent human, Homo sapiens, is also naturally a cunning human, Homo dolicis. Cunning isn't the opposite of wisdom, it's an expression of it.
And that right there is the core idea. The admiration isn't for the act of lying itself, it's for the mental gymnastics, the creativity it takes to find an unconventional solution, to outthink an opponent instead of just overpowering them. It's all about brains over brute force.
Now, this deep respect for strategic thinking isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. Oh no, it was actually codified centuries ago in a super famous collection of tactics we know as the 36 stratagems.
So let's get really clear on what a stratagem even is. It's not just any old plan. It's a very specific, often hidden and indirect maneuver that's designed to outwit someone and get an advantage. You can think of it like a playbook for unconventional cunning.
This quote just perfectly captures the mindset. In this view, the marketplace is a war place. Any area of competition, whether it's a business negotiation or a political campaign, is seen as a battlefield. And in that kind of environment, strategy isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely essential to survive.
Now, it's really easy to hear all of this and just think, okay, so the 36 stratagems are basically a cheater's manual. But that's a massive oversimplification. The reality is way more sophisticated.
I mean, just look at this breakdown. Only about a third of the stratagems are really about pure deception, making things up. The vast majority, 2/3 of them, are what you could call present stratagems. They're not about creating lies. They're about skillfully manipulating things that are already real, using timing, your location, and psychology to get an edge.
So how does all this theory actually play out in the real world? Let's take a look at these strategies in action. Okay, check out this classic business case. A German company flies to China. They think the deal is basically done, just need to sign the papers. But the moment they arrive, their Chinese counterparts suddenly bring up all these serious disagreements. Now the Germans, they're jet-lagged, they're already invested, and they're caught totally flat-footed. They're forced to negotiate from a much weaker spot. This is a perfect use of stratagem number 4. Wait at leisure while the enemy labors. The Chinese side just waited for that moment of maximum psychological advantage. No actual lies were told. It was just a brilliant use of timing and environment.
And strategy isn't just about attacking. Take this soap company, Brunner. They were locked in a nasty price war in China. But then they realized, hey, this fight is making us weak in our main market, Japan. So what did they do? They retreated from China to protect Japan. That is a classic example of stratagem number 11, sacrifice the plum tree to preserve the peach tree. You let a small thing go to save the crucial one. The real genius, though, is when you start linking these together, which is stratagem number 35, linking stratagems, where one move flawlessly sets up the next.
So, we get to the big question. Why should any of this matter to you? I mean, especially if you're not planning on becoming some kind of master strategist yourself. It matters because here in the West, we often don't have a formal language for this stuff. We don't study it. So when a sophisticated strategy is used against us in, say, a negotiation, we might be completely blind to it. We might just write it off as, oh, that was tough, or we had some bad luck, when it was actually a very deliberate set of moves.
And that is the real power of learning this. This leads to what some people call the secret 37th stratagem. And what's that? It's the idea that the greatest trick of all is making your opponent believe there are only 36. See, by not knowing the game, you can't even see the moves being made. The point isn't just to learn how to use these tricks, it's to develop the defensive wisdom to see the entire board and know when you're being played.
So here's the final thought to leave you with. This isn't just for billion-dollar corporate takeovers. This is happening in office politics, in the marketing ad that creates a false sense of urgency, in the negotiation for your next car. Once you have this lens, you start to see these ancient strategies playing out all around you. The only question left is, what are you going to do with that knowledge?